चलिए वो थोड़ा ये हो गया, अर्जेंट काम आ गया, एक दिन आगे जाना पड़ रहा है।
क्लास के लास्ट में पीछे वो निकल
आ जाइए, जल्दी आ जाइए, बात करना कृष्णा। स्टार्ट कर दिया गलती से। स्टार्ट करने से लिंक चेंज हो जाता है। हाँ हरी बोले कट गया। चलो फरवरी में चांस है।
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manavishnu Sthapitam Yena Swayam Rupa Kadamani Gadati Swapadantikam Vande Shri Guru Shri Yutam Shri Gurun Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parigana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vedamsa Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharite Nirvichesha Shunnavadi Pashyati Priyashatari Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvishaya Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Dharmeshwari Vishabhanasute Devi Pranamami Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Parabhadra Subhadravayam Jagannatha Iti Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindhu Vaivasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravata Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachana Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataya Text 12. Andham tama
प्रविशति
ye shambhutim upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yayu shambhutyam ratah. Those who are engaged in the worship of the demigods enter into the darkest. The Sanskrit word asambhuti maharshinam cha sarvashah. Neither the host of the demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences. For in every respect I am the source of the demigods and the sages. Thus Krishna is the origin of the powers delegated to the demigods, great sages and mystics. Although they are endowed with great powers, their powers are limited, and thus it is very difficult for them to know how Krishna himself appears by his own internal potency in the form of a man. Many philosophers and great rishis or mystics try to distinguish the absolute from the relative by their tiny brain power. This can only help them reach the negative conception of the absolute without realizing any positive trace of the Absolute. Definition of the Absolute by negation is not complete. Such negative definitions lead one to create a concept of one's own, and thus one imagines that the Absolute must be formless and without qualities. Such negative qualities are simply the reversals of relative material qualities and are therefore also relative. By conceiving of the Absolute in this way, one can at the utmost reach the impersonal effulgence of God known as Brahman. But one cannot make further progress to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Such mental speculators do not know that the absolute personality of Godhead is Krishna, that the impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body. Or that the Paramatma, the Supersoul, is his all-pervading plenary representation. Nor do they know that Krishna has his eternal form with its transcendental qualities of eternal bliss and knowledge. The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly consider him to be a powerful demigod. And they consider the Brahman effulgence of the Absolute Truth to be the Absolute Truth. For the devotees of Krishna, by dint of their surrendering unto him and their unalloyed devotion, can know that he is the Absolute Person and that everything emanates from him. Such devotees continuously render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that only unintelligent, bewildered persons driven by a strong desire for sense gratification worship the demigods for temporary relief of temporary problems. Since the living entity is materially entangled, he has to be relieved from material bondage entirely to attain permanent relief on the spiritual plane, where eternal bliss, life and knowledge exist. Sri Ishopanishad therefore instructs that we should not seek temporary relief of our difficulties by worshipping the dependent demigods who can bestow only temporary benefit. Rather, we must worship the absolute personality of Godhead Krishna, who is all attractive and can bestow upon us complete freedom from material bondage by taking us back home, back to God. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the worshippers of the demigods can go to the planets of the demigods. The moon worshippers may go to the moon, the sun worshippers to the sun, etc. Modern scientists are now venturing to the moon with the help of rockets. But this is not really a new attempt. With their advanced consciousness, human beings are naturally inclined to travel in outer space and to reach other planets either by spaceships or mystic powers or demigod worship. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that one can reach other planets by any one of these three ways. But the most common way is by worshipping the demigod presiding over a particular planet. In this way, one can reach the moon planet, the sun planet, even Brahmaloka, the topmost planet in the universe. However, all planets in the material universe are temporary residences. The only planets are the Vaikuntha planets. Permanent planets are the Vaikuntha planets. These are found in the spiritual sky where the personality of God himself predominates, as Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 8:16. Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravritino arjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Sri Ishopanishad points out that one who worships the demigods and attains to their material planet still remains in the darkest region of ignorance. The whole universe is covered by the gigantic material elements. It's just like a coconut covered by a shell and half filled with water. Since its covering is airtight, the darkness within is dense, and therefore the sun and the moon are required for illumination. Outside the universe is the vast and unlimited Brahmajyoti expansion, which is filled with Vaikuntha Lokas. The biggest and the highest planet in the Brahmajyoti is Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavan. Where the Supreme Personality of Godhead Shri Krishna himself resides, Lord Shri Krishna never leaves Krishna Loka. Although he dwells there with his eternal associates, he is omnipresent throughout the complete material and cosmic. He is omnipresent throughout the complete material and spiritual cosmic manifestations. The fact has already been explained in Mantra 4. The Lord is present everywhere just like the sun, yet he is situated in one place just as the sun is situated in its own undevouring orbit. The problems of life cannot be simply solved by going to the moon planet or to some other planet above or below it. Therefore, Shri Ishopanishad advises us not to bother with any destination within this dark material universe, but to try to get out of it and reach the effulgent kingdom of God. There are many pseudo worshippers who become religionists only for the sake of name and fame. Such pseudo religionists do not wish to get out of this universe and reach the spiritual sky. They only want to maintain the status quo in the material world under the garb of worshipping the Lord. The atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish religionists into the darkest regions of preaching the cult of atheism. The atheist directly denies the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the impersonalists oppose the atheists by stressing the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. Thus far, we have not come across any mantra in Shri Ishopanishad in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is denied. It is said that he can run faster than everyone. Those who are running after other planets are certainly persons. And if the Lord can run faster than all of them, how can he be impersonal? There are many pseudo worshippers who become religionists only for the pseudo religionists do not wish to get out of this universe and reach the spiritual sky. They only want to maintain the status quo in the material world under the garb of worshipping the Lord. The atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish religionists into the darkest region of preaching. Into the darkest region by preaching the cult of atheism. The atheists directly deny the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the impersonalists. And the impersonalists support the atheists by stressing the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Lord. Thus far, we have not come across any mantra in Shri Ishopanishad in which the personality of Godhead is denied. It is said that he can run faster than anyone. Those who are running after other planets are certainly persons. But if the Lord can run faster than all of them, how can he be impersonal? The impersonal conception of the Supreme Lord is another form of ignorance arising from the imperfect conception of the Absolute Truth. This verse is pointing towards titillations. The living entity has a habit of pacifying the titillations. So when the living entity gets overwhelmed by titillations, then actually the path which is prescribed for him is demigod worship. And that's what we understand that demigod worship is. But then as Srila Prabhupada explains so beautifully in this purport, that one who takes to this demigod worship Prabhupada explains that one who takes to this demigod worship, why Shri Ishopanishad is talking about, that he is actually entering the darkest region of ignorance. And Prabhupada said beautiful explanation that yes, material world, whichever planet one enters, whether it is Brahmaloka or it is Bhuloka or Bhuvaloka, it's not much different from each other. It is still a deep dark night. There is still confusion, there is still perplexity and so on. So therefore, it does not make a difference. It doesn't make much difference actually. Because the material settings are simply based on titillations. Therefore, the material settings in themselves have not much value. So as long as the living entity keeps surfacing along, there is not much use in that. So we understand that there is not much difference whether one gets the benedictions given by the demigods or not. Not much difference there. That's why it has been described that one still remains in this darkness region of this universe. Universe is a dark place. So light only reflects from the Supreme Lord. Like exudes from the Supreme Lord. So in worshipping the demigods, there is no solution. The solution comes when we start worshipping Krishna. That's what this mantra is explaining actually. Yes, the position of demigods, their role in the whole universal government, all that is acknowledged. But demigods, as Srila Prabhupada explains, are not completely independent. Krishna is completely independent. The demigods are not. Prabhupada explains this. So the demigods are not absolute. They are not absolutely independent, but the Supreme Lord Krishna is. Therefore, there is no point in simply stepping on tottering plains. Krishna is the Supreme Absolute. He is the Absolute Personality of Godhead. So therefore actually, demigod worship in that sense does not help the living entity much. Because it simply surfaces along on a superficial scale actually. So living entity is bewildered thinking that materially if I get this, if I get that, I will be happy. But this is all an illusion. Whether he gets it or not is another story. But this is not the way by which he becomes happy. That is the point which is explained actually. Materially speaking, nothing can satisfy us. We can make ourselves blind by unnecessarily attaching ourselves and meditating on the material desires and so on. But in due course of time, it is not that which is going to satisfy us. But what will satisfy us is our eternal investment actually. That's why demigod worship is being described as useless actually. One was going to the darkest region of ignorance anyways. why it says that okay, those who worship the demigods will enter the darkest region of ignorance. Yes, because anyways the living entity was so much reaching, he was they were anyways planning to go for our eternal investment in Krishna is what counts actually. Because you see the point, Srila Prabhupada is explaining very nicely actually that Prabhupada explains about this negative understanding of this world actually. Because impersonalist gets. See, the point is what? That now when one tries to move forward by his own power, even if he is moving forward towards the Supreme Lord, because he is moving on his own power actually, what he will do is simply a negation, Prabhupada explains. That what is material is problematic, so he will do a negation of that. And because the material is relative, the negation of that is also relative. And therefore he lands up in a negative concept of God. And there is no way by which you can understand the positive aspect of the Lord's identity. And therefore Prabhupada explains such people can at max go towards impersonalistic Brahman. And they cannot go further actually. So that means that by one's own mental speculation, by one's own skills, by one's own concepts, one cannot go much farther. So, the point is very beautiful here that by one's own conceptions, one cannot go far. This one is very beautiful actually. Because many times we see in our spiritual life also, we make our own plan of spiritual life. Or many times we make a grand plan, in which we enjoy also and spiritual life is also taking place. It's a very grand plan. That yes, I can enjoy also and spiritual also. So now what happens is that even this plan, even if one says this plan is for probably for a spiritual cause, for advancement, slow or fast, purification of heart. But still, because it is based on the self, it is still relative. Relative. So that means what? That the living entity feels that the relative. He feels that he is advancing, but others do not acknowledge that, So it's very beautiful actually that you see our own concepts, even if they are applied spiritually, are still going to become relative actually. That means relative to one's mindset, one may think that things are moving forward. But still it may not be the case like that. This is the meaning of relative. So therefore actually a sadhaka should not be glued on to his own vision so deeply that he is not ready to budge. So thus we understand that there is no way by which on our own we can understand the absolute. Whether we are conditioned or liberated, there is no way by which we can understand the absolute actually. Because if you base it on relative, then it's relative. There is no absolute based on the relative, is it? So therefore, actually, one needs to accept the arrangement of the Lord in life. That will take
One needs to
accept arrangement. This is very nice actually. Just like sometimes we do arithmetic, relative arithmetic in memory management or in operating system management, we can do some arithmetic. Okay, and if the base address is X, then we say, and then we make a whole program of it, how it should move like that. Now, this in itself is not sufficient. You can say the base address is this, and I have a chunk of memory which has 50 locations. Then I can do 50 manipulations to store various values. So now this in itself is not sufficient. What one needs is, okay, the relative memory locations you may know, but what is, at least one should have the absolute memory location, by which we can understand which is the actual memory location, is it not? The base address. Similarly, we see that one's own mental speculation creates a framework which is around himself. But this framework needs a proper place value. For it to be manifest, at least on a tangible ground. And that physical value many times Krishna gives in the form of various situations which come in our life. So when things go unexpected, one should not unnecessarily get too much agitated. Because understanding that Krishna is setting the place value. And if this is properly said, the other relative will make sense. That is the point. Does it make sense? So therefore, our arrangements or our actually endeavors are our arrangements, or our endeavors form a relative box, but this box has to be placed on the right place value, and that the Lord does actually. So therefore, we are trying to understand that by no means we can understand the Supreme Lord, and Krishna explains it. Prabhupada speaks that even the demigods cannot understand. There is no means by which you can understand the Supreme Lord. So best is to wait for Krishna's reciprocation, Krishna's revelations actually. And these Krishna's revelations are most important. That is the reason why demigod worship is being spoken to be almost useless. Because it makes some relative superficial changes. But where is the absolute pointer? The whole materialistic civilization is running on relatives, that's all. Where is the absolute pointer actually? It's all relative. So people, because it's all relative, it's lost. Is it not? Just like people put cosmetics, Now you may put a lot of cream on your face, but that cream will go away in a day, is it not? So one based his endeavors on a relative platform, and therefore the platform is not there and it's changed, is it not? There is no footing actually. The whole material world runs like this, is it not? There is no footing. There is no solidity. There is no lasting existence. So that only comes when one understands and accepts the position of the Absolute, is it? That's why actually we can understand that simply superficial settings are not going to help, is it not? So many times what happens is that again, the illusion is like that actually, it's all relative. It starts from some floating pointer and then it builds on the basis of that floating pointer and that floating pointer floats away, like that. So this is the point actually, is it not? So there's no use investing on floating pointers. Where is the absolute solidity, is it not? So you're simply assuming. Many times you see the solution of a problem is start with an assumption. Okay, let's assume if this is the case, and then you're able to solve it. But that is not a solution because you started from assumption, is it not? You can start from assumption, but then you have to also, in due course of proving, prove that whatever you assume, it's okay, But if you cannot do that, you start with an assumption that let this value be x, some fixed value x. But then if it is not x, what is the problem? Then the whole analysis is useless, is it not? So living entity starts his whole game with an assumption actually, and therefore he is such a miserable predicament actually. So living entity's first, if you see living entity's first assumption, he starts his activity with an assumption. I am very great, that is his assumption, And then he starts his activities from that. Hey, because I am very great, everybody should follow me, Like that. Living entity feels, I am upright, Assumption. So therefore actually this whole game of demigod worship is assumptions that Krishna explains in 7th chapter. And these people, they are not attached to the demigods. Even if they are attached to demigods and the demigods are attached to Krishna, so still there is some solidity, is it not? They are not attached to demigods, they are attached to the results. And because they are attached to results, they are not basing it on anything absolute, is it not? You see, Bharat Maharaj was attached to the demigods. When he was doing his Gaumed Yagya, Shumed Yagya and so on, Agnihotra and so on and so forth, then he was offering oblations and sacrifices and yagyas to the demigods. But then what was this consciousness that these demigods are part and parcel of Krishna, I am offering everything to Krishna. So that means if you develop attachment for the demigods, then also there is some solidity because the demigods are attached to Krishna. But most of these demigod worshippers, So the living entity has to give up this relative platform. The living entity has to start accepting Krishna's absolute platforms. Yes. So therefore actually it's such a relief sometimes to just come out of this loop that what I want and what I don't want, and just try to sit down and meditate upon what all things Krishna has given me. Is it not? That's absolute. Many times people, they don't focus on what they have, what is there in the hand, and they simply keep crying for what is somewhere else. So one has to give up his own concepts to be able to understand and appreciate that yes, this is what the Supreme Lord is giving me actually. So let me take it up in a wholehearted fashion. This is very ridiculous actually. The living entity starts from a floating point and keeps looping here and there, like that. And this floating point floats up actually. So Krishna sets the point rightly actually. That's why Krishna is giving miseries also. He wants to set the point rightly. Don't simply survive in illusion actually. And therefore the demigods are given good powers, but their powers are all limited because so their powers are limited. That means that the results they give are also limited, and this is a great benediction, is it not? Because if it doesn't fade off, the living entity will never understand. Ye kidhar phas gaye na? Is it not? Like that. It's very nice. The body becomes old. Because if the body doesn't become old, the living entity will remain in illusion perpetually. Is it not? So nice, the body becomes old. Very nice actually. You see, generally, actually, people consider plus 50 only as old man and they reject, is it not? But a person has a long life after that also. Generally people live 80, So now, because the body is going old and the body is various parts of the body is becoming loose and all that, that's a very nice understanding for the living entity that this platform simply serving the body and sense gratification for the body will not help. Something more has to be done, isn't it? So it's very nice actually. Krishna is setting our pointers right always actually. That's the point. And that's why this whole game of demigod worship is being condemned. That's what Prabhupada means when he is explaining Krishna is the Absolute. That's why we should not simply float around, Material desires, needs, and so on. They're simply floating platforms actually. Only when we offer it to Krishna, it has some solidity. It has some rigidity. Some coordinates it, yes. Otherwise, so the solidity has to be added. Without this, it's only titillations, and therefore that is being described as darkest views of ignorance. There is no use. So sadhaka should be in a position to look out for that, okay, yes, what Krishna is giving me, where is the opportunity to serve here? Where is the lesson for me? and so on. That's why if you study the Shastra, then it says that, okay, even Brahma's planet, even Pata, there's not much difference between them. It's all relative. So it's all relative and cyclic, It is, you go up, you come down, you go down, you come up, is it not? And keeps going on, and because it's relative, what is better, what is not better, is it not? What is better, what is not better? It's all relative.
This tendency which comes in Bhakti also. Demigod was like going to tottering things. Can you please tell some impersonalist tendencies which come in Bhakti? As Prabhupada is talking about impersonalist also.
Yeah, actually, one needs both. The Prabhupada explains here, simply negating things and understanding things by negation is not going to help our action. One needs to learn the positive dimension as well, actually. Otherwise, one will simply remain in his own loop, and many times in the loop one goes forward, comes back, or goes forward, comes back, That is what may happen, actually. So an impersonalist is simply negating. He can only reach the impersonal Brahman and he'll fall down from there. That's all will happen to him. So in our own bhakti also many times, if you just see, okay, that in my understanding, and if you say, okay, in my understanding, I did this wrong, that means this is the way I need to go. If you only base it on self-analysis and self-analysis and self-analysis, then we are no better than, So then that we are trying to understand simply by negation, and that only negation will not work. One has to hear from self-realized souls. One has to take shelter of the parampara, like that. Is it not? So that will give us positive. So therefore there is no substitute to dependence. There is no substitute to revelations in Krishna consciousness, like that. It's not that, okay, by my own experience only I will get to understand everything. Maybe giving some pointers and directions, but then yes, okay, in that way we are learning by negation. It needs to be revelations actually. Therefore Shamanam is most important. Therefore Sangha is very important. Got the point, no? So then one gets positive revelations, which are beyond one's sometimes concepts, to understand. It takes time to digest and understand. So many times people and devotees behave with us in ways which are not understandable by us at all. Now if we simply base it on our own understanding and continue with that, we will have a very different type of understanding, isn't it? Because only based on our own perceptions and our own beliefs, like that. But then when we accept the verdict of other devotees, the acharyas, the seniors, then that opens us up actually. Is it not? So impersonalism actually, or you can say Brahmavad, is basically a sincere starting attempt. But their mistake is that they are not taking shelter of any higher authority. And therefore, because the revelations are not given value, their speed is very slow and they get lost, isn't it? So we should beware of this and we take a lesson and move forward. So I believe we'll stop here. Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Upanishad ki jai. We'll continue further next week.
Taking Shavanam. he hears something, hear from Maharaj or something. So by that, let's say we are hearing the first time or something. So by that by hearing that we get some final detail or final understanding of something. So we feel that and we feel very nice that I have a deeper understanding. So then we want to how to understand that understanding which I am getting, or finer depth which I am getting. Is it a realization, or is it my mental some mind's game, or mind is imagining something?
We have to see how it translates into our day-to-day life, you know? Is it not? If it is holistic, balanced, it translates very nicely into our day-to-day life, then fine. If it is creating enough vibrations, then you should understand it's not fine. Is it not? See, time is a very beautiful proof actually. So we can put it in and see what is the proof in time. Is it not? What Krishna is giving is going to be very solid, you know? And what we are going to give is hodgepodge, is it not? Just like how do you understand local sweater and local brand and say Raymond's brand and so on, you know? If it is Raymond's, it will continue 10 years. If it is global, in 6 months it will be finished. Is it not? Yes? That's the point. And if you try to get something cheap, then you have to pay a heavy price. Got the point, huh? Okay, so we'll continue our next class.